Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Jeff shred the document. It was his to shred. It was his to shred.
Spending scandal documents shredded. The Premier's office under fire also.
If it's okay or a good idea for all those people, why isn't it a good idea for British Columbians?
Why are BC seniors facing a long wait for a more effective flu vaccine? And
to meet people one-on-one and hopefully, see, maybe change some lives.
Why is Pamela Anderson on Vancouver's downtown east side?
This is CBC Vancouver News.
I asked my chief of staff to take the meeting. He did. When he saw the information, he said immediately, this should go to the police. My office is not an investigative body.
Premier John Horgan defending the actions of his office amid demands for his resignation as we learn new details in the Legislature spending scandal.
a new report found that months before the story broke and two top provincial officials were marched out of the Legislature, Horgan's chief of staff was told about their alleged misconduct and shredded copies of documents related to the scandal.
When he was advised that the information had been passed on to the police, it was no longer a document that was worth keeping. It wasn't created by our office. It was not a public document that was part of running the government of British Columbia. It was in the hands of the police. There was no need for us to keep it.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. For more on this, we are going live to Victoria with CBC Provincial Affairs reporter Tanya Fletcher. Tanya?
Tanya, Horgan's chief...
Anita,
Go ahead, Tanya.
Yes, so Jeff Meggs, he put out a statement later in the day clarifying some things, Anita and Mike. He says what he shredded were copies of the allegations and not original documents. And he also emphasized himself that he did so only after learning the speaker had taken his concerns to the police as advised. Now, John Horgan himself has distanced himself all along from this scandal. He says it's because it's long been public that he was always opposed to the appointment of Craig James as clerk years ago. Now, he says when the speaker first came to him, personally saying he had concerns regarding the sergeant at arms and the clerk, that he said, hey, if this involves Craig James, I don't want to have anything to do with it. And that's why he asked his chief of staff to take the meeting instead. He says he had to have anything to do with it because he didn't want to appear that he would be biased towards Craig James.
I said I do not want to be involved in any way in allegations against the clerk of this place because it was well known that I didn't like the guy and I didn't think he should be appointed. A document of unknown origin to me or to Jeff Meggs was left behind. We have documents piled up in our office that are generated by public servants. They're our responsibility, not what happens in the Speaker's office. It's just that simple.
So I suppose what we're left wondering, though, is why, even though the Premier was aware there were at least some issues, even though he didn't know specifically what they were in July, why then fast forward in November, 4 months later, when the two senior staffers were marched out of the building, did John Horgan appear just as surprised as everyone else, saying he had no idea what the allegations were or that there were even problems in the first place?
Okay, Tanya, so what's the opposition saying?
Well, Horgan's office says they did nothing wrong, but the BC Liberals want Jeff Meggs fired as chief of staff. So they claim the timeline of, when the documents were shredded or regardless of whether the police already knew about it, they say that's not the point. And they say that regardless of all of these details, the Premier's chief of staff should have immediately gone to police himself and also to the other House leaders of the other parties.
When someone who is a senior political staffer to the Premier of British Columbia receives a report alleging criminal wrongdoing, his obligation is to inform the police and to inform the Premier. Instead, Mr. Meggs did nothing and shredded the report.
Now, the Liberals also have something to answer for here. Keep in mind, these details were revealed late yesterday in the report that came from the former VPD Deputy Chief, Doug Lepard. And it was also revealed in his report that former Speaker, Liberal Linda Reid, did not cooperate herself in his investigation and that she refused to answer questions directly as part of his report. So Linda Reid herself was not at the Legislature today, but these questions were put to Andrew Wilkinson. He says he wasn't aware of that, and he added that he believes anyone asked to participate in these types of investigations should do so. Anita, Mike?
All right, Tanya Fletcher live in the Capitol tonight. Thanks.
And you heard Tanya mention another report. So these latest developments are coming to light while the legislature is still reeling from that other report on spending scandal.
It found one of the officials at the center of it all, former Sergeant at Arms Gary Lenz, lied during 2 later investigations into what happened.
The report released last night by former VPD Deputy Chief Doug Lepard says Lenz's untruthful oral and written statements to me were a violation of oath, and they represent very serious misconduct. Lenz responded saying, I do not accept that conclusion, that I did not give truthful testimony, adding, I have always told the truth in every matter related to my employment as Sergeant at Arms.
Gripping testimony today at the trial of Gabriel Klein, accused of killing Abbotsford student Letitia Reimer at her school back in November 2016. 2 witnesses, another student who was also stabbed by Klein, and a teacher who tried to help a dying Reimer, described the horrific scene. In a videotaped account with police that was played in court today, the student said she heard Reimer scream, saw Klein's face, and only remembered he looked mean. The teacher testified he saw Klein on top of Reimer stabbing her with a knife and told him to put the knife down. Klein, who has schizophrenia, will argue he was not criminally responsible by reason of a mental disorder.
Well, BC seniors want access to a more powerful flu vaccine being offered in other provinces.
But even though federal health officials recommend the shot, the BC government isn't so sure. Joel Ballard explains the divide.
Now that he's retired, Doug Rushton is enjoying taking it easy. But at 69, he's also taking extra steps to make sure he doesn't get sick this flu season.
Well, your system is not as well prepared to fight it off as one, say, your age is.
Rushton says he falls into the geezer category. His words, not mine. And he found a recommendation by the National Advisory Committee on Immunization that anyone over 65 could benefit from a high-dose flu shot called Fluzone, which causes more antibodies to be developed to fight the virus.
So I went looking for it.
But every pharmacy Rushton called told him the same thing. They don't carry it. CBC News reached out to a dozen pharmacies across the Lower Mainland, and none of them carried any Fluzone. Most weren't even sure when any would come in. But a spokesperson for Shoppers Drug Mart did say that they expect a shipment to come in by the beginning of December, smack dab in the middle of flu season.
That'll be too late for anyone who was anxious to get a flu shot in the first place.
The vaccine isn't covered by provincial health care in BC, unlike other flu shots. The company that makes the vaccine sent this statement to the CBC. We prioritize the delivery of these vaccines for all provinces and territories that have public programs each year. Those are Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Northwest Territories, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island. The company supplies only limited doses of the vaccine to BC, and anyone who wants it has to pay $75 a shot. In a report based on findings by the Advisory Committee, the BC Centre for Disease Control explained why the province doesn't cover the cost. The evidence and anticipated incremental benefit of a high dose is not commensurate with the additional 5-fold cost. Basically, it's too expensive and there's not enough proof that it's worth it. BC's health minister says the province is simply following the advice of the same advisory committee that says Fluzone is helpful for seniors.
Well, the National Advisory Committee on Immunization is not recommending coverage under public health plans. We follow the experts in terms of immunization policy.
But Rushton doesn't buy that explanation.
If it's okay or a good idea for all those people, why isn't it a good idea for British Columbians?
For now, he's left choosing between getting a regular shot or risking a bout of the flu while waiting for the high dose to arrive in pharmacies. Joel Ballard, CBC News, Vancouver.
Port Moody Council is still waiting for the province to weigh in on whether the city's mayor should be on another leave of absence. Yesterday, council voted 4-3, asking Mayor Rob Bagramov to take a temporary leave of absence while his sexual assault charge works its way through the courts. Council asked the province to help it figure out what it should do, but the minister responsible has yet to comment. Bagramov returned to work in September, saying his charge would be downgraded to a lesser offense. His next court date is set for mid-November.
Support is growing for striking workers at 4 downtown Vancouver hotels. 1,200 workers walked off the job 3 weeks ago. Now the BC Federation of Labor is joining them on the picket lines. The Federation is calling for a boycott of the Hyatt, Westin Bayshore, Pinnacle, and Hotel Georgia. Affiliated unions have already canceled bookings and events at those hotels, and the Federation is inviting the public to join them.
It's important for us as a labor movement and the public to assist with getting a deal that addresses these issues: precarity of work, health and safety at work, a livable wage. So I think it's all of our issue, and I think raising the profile will help to put pressure on these employers to get back to the table, negotiate a fair contract.
The strike began after more than a year of failed negotiations.
All right, she's a former Playboy playmate turned actress and animal rights activist from Vancouver Island.
And this afternoon, Pamela Anderson was on the downtown east side with the local Green Party candidate, encouraging people to get out and vote. The CBC's Tina Lovegreen was there.
This is a bad picture. I don't like this one.
Her celebrity power has drawn people from the streets here, from the downtown east side, into this restaurant where she's handing out vegan meals and getting people registered to vote.
You know, I'd like to support communities that are more the vulnerable communities that maybe aren't registered to vote, which have the most need, and really, it's the first step to empowering yourself.
This area is home to some of the most marginalized people in the city. It's the epicenter of the opioid crisis here in BC, and many of the people here are either homeless or moving from shelter to shelter, which means they don't necessarily have proper ID or a permanent address.
We have a list of a bunch of different kinds of ID, from a library card to just any kind of a letter of residence. Like I said, if you live in a single room occupancy, so just verification, where their polling stations are, where they can advance poll, etc., and just helping them navigate.
The 52-year-old model is a longtime Green Party supporter. She's an animal activist and cares about social issues, which is what connected her to the local candidate here, Bridget Burns. She's also a friend of Paul Manley, who's running in Anderson's hometown of Ladysmith.
I'm a big fan of Green parties. I think they've been walking the talk for a long, long time, and now is the time. It's a revolution. I always say, good girls, vote green. You know, have these really fun things. I think people are really ready.
So the comic book. While her presence has drawn in her fans who are excited to meet her and get autographs, this riding is an NDP stronghold, and it has been for years. So this event likely won't swing voters over to the Green side, but it has gotten a lot of people registered to vote. Tina Lovegreen, CBC News, Vancouver.
A new RCMP campaign in Surrey is going flat out to stop dangerous drivers. Two-dimensional cutout versions of an officer and a marked police car will be set up at several roadways around the city. RCMP are using them to try to change unsafe driving behaviors. It's the same method Coquitlam started using last year. Data collected will be used to assess the impact of the ongoing enforcement project.
What a gorgeous day out there today. Went for a little walk, but I have to say it was very cold.
Chilly.
Brett?
Yes, I know you can definitely look at me for this one, and I will let you know it wasn't just cold, it was record-breaking cold. So maybe that helps to justify it. If you felt there was a chill in the air, you were not alone with this. Vancouver, at the International Airport, that is, 1.3 degrees this morning. That broke a record from nearly 60 years ago, set back in 1960. And this trend is going to be continuing. But over on Vancouver Island, we saw temperatures there well below zero. That was all thanks to these clear skies. And that, as I mentioned, is going to be what we're dealing with over the next little while. Presently, all across the lower mainland, we're looking at temperatures that are naturally below seasonal. But with still quite a lot of clear skies, we are looking at temperatures right around 7 degrees or so. And these will be falling throughout the overnight period. Watch this. Again, closer to the harbor, Vancouver might be saved by the worst of this. We're looking at about 4 degrees, but down toward Burnaby, New West, Richmond, Surrey, maybe down to 1 degree. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see YVR go down to the freezing mark by this time tomorrow, or rather by early morning tomorrow. And in terms of what that will translate to for our look ahead here, nothing but clear skies really for the overnight. No clouds whatsoever throughout the overnight, going from 4 down to about 1 degree right first thing in the morning. So if you are going to be going out for another walk, do bundle up appropriately. And then by the afternoon, I think we're going to get into the double digits once more. Temperatures probably closer to about 12 degrees at their highest, and lots of sunshine to go with it.
Thanks very much, Brett.
You're welcome.
Well, it's a big night down at Rogers Arena. The Vancouver Canucks are hosting their Home opener tonight and celebrating 50 years as a team.
Already seeing lots of jerseys around Vancouver today. Our Dan Burrett is down at Rogers Arena among the fans. Dan, what can we expect tonight?
Anita, Mike, it's a mix of nostalgia and renewal. And sorry, it's very loud down here, but take a look over here. Look who that is, Dave Babbage, defensive hero of the 1994 run, and just beyond him, from the 70s and 80s, beloved Darcy Rhoda. So it is nostalgia and it is renewal down here at Rogers Arena for this home opener for the Canucks. The Canucks are marking half a century in the NHL. They first played their first home game in 1970 against the LA Kings. They lost 3-1. They're hoping for a better result tonight. Now, this is a big year in all kinds of ways. The Canucks plan to celebrate their past with old leaders and captains, and everyone gets a towel inside tonight. But they're also going to crown a new captain. The speculation is that Bo Horvat is going to get the nod, but that will not be confirmed until just before game time. And with a crop of new young players in the roster like Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes, Brock Besser, they hope to attract new fans and reestablish links with some of those fans, longtime stalwarts, who have grown a bit weary after years of missing the playoffs and rebuilding. The Canucks say ticket sales are solid, but they still have some work to do. And tonight's 50-50 draw could top $1 million. So why should people spend their hard-earned cash on the team this year? Have a listen.
I think because of the young core of new players that we have, there's a bit of a journey that fans can attach themselves to now and watch this new crop of young stars become sort of those heroes that this next generation will attach themselves to.
And just to clarify, the new captain is?
Haha, we'll have to wait and see.
Dan, always trying to get the scoop there, eh? How are fans at Rogers Arena feeling tonight?
There is, I'd say, an optimistic air around here, particularly around the youth movement. People are excited for the fact that this team has a lot of young blood in it. Have a listen to what they said.
It's going to be fantastic. Yeah, we got youth, we got spirit, we got a lot of love of the fans. Like, what more do you want? And talent.
I'm just hoping to get to a lot of games, and I'm hoping to see them grow as a team and meld together and mesh, because I think they have a lot of talent on this team.
How do you think the Canucks will do this year?
They have to play hard, never get penalties, get shots on net, and score goals. And I want to take Bo Horvat. Bo Horvat's going to be my captain.
So, as we said, we'll have to wait to find out if Bo Horvat is going to be the new captain. They've had 13 over the years, from Trevor Linden to Orland Kurtenbach, even Roberto Luongo for a brief period of time, along with Hendrik Sedin. So will it be him? We'll find out. But if there's any clue I can give you, you know that giant hand-cranked bell slash giant noisemaker that is in Rogers Arena? That'll be fired up tonight, and it will be cranked by a player's dad. Back to you.
Ah, interesting.
There you go.
All right, thanks, Dan.
Intrigue there down at the arena.
Yes.
Just want to remind you, you can watch this newscast and other CBC programs wherever you go on CBC Gem. It's an app, and it's free.
CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Coming up after the break, why one Vancouver Island riding is shaping up to be a tight race between three parties, and how crucial it is for the Greens.
Well, with about a week and a half to go in this federal election campaign, 3 of the party leaders talked about immigration today.
It started with Conservative leader Andrew Scheer's plan to stop the flow of asylum seekers at unofficial borders like Roxham Road in Quebec.
We'll close the loophole in the Safe Third Country Agreement. We'll also hire 250 additional officers at the Canada Border Services Agency.
By suspending the agreement, people would not need to cross irregularly. These are people that are fleeing death, they're fleeing persecution. And in the States, they're fleeing the fact that Mr. Trump has been putting kids in cages, has been stripping babies out of the arms of their mothers.
Every single person who crosses our border, whether it is regularly or irregularly, gets fully processed by our immigration system.
For her part, Green Party leader Elizabeth May was making a push for green jobs today, arguing culture is a strong and valuable part of Canada's economy.
A Liberal candidate in Toronto is apologizing for comments she made after Justin Trudeau's blackface scandal.
In knocking on doors and being in the plazas and talking to people to make sure that I'm as sensitive as I need to be if I've missed something. And those in the Black community have told me that how much more love they have for the Prime Minister, that he wanted to have a blackface. He took great pride in that too, and that it's the media that have blown this into something that it shouldn't be.
This interview was 2 weeks ago, but resurfaced online today. On her Facebook and Twitter, Sagro wrote today that she should have known better and called her comments insensitive. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh had a different word for it.
It is ludicrous for Ms. Sagro to suggest that. It is embarrassing and it is shameful that she would suggest that people like Mr. Trudeau more because he did blackface. That shows a massive disconnect between the Liberal Party and, in fact, Mr. Trudeau and what real people are living and what they're experiencing. It is shameful that she said something like that.
75-year-old Sagro has been the MP for the Humber area since 1999. Before that, she was a Toronto city councillor.
Over the past couple of weeks, we've been focusing on some of the more interesting ridings in the federal election, some interesting races in our province, and one is certainly unfolding in the capital.
Yes, the federal riding of Victoria has been represented by the NDP for the past 13 years. And before that, the Liberals had it for 13 years.
This time around, as Belpiri reports, it is shaped up to be a tight 3-way race with the Green Party looking for a crucial win.
All right, let's do some waving.
Not even drizzle dampens the spirit.
There is a beautiful green wave. It's a bunch of momentum.
It's momentum the Green Party hopes to ride to victory. Victoria is a key riding because, one, there's no incumbent in the race, and more importantly, because of the continuing trend of increasing Green Party popularity on Vancouver Island. In the last 2 federal elections, National Green leader Elizabeth May won in the adjoining riding of Saanich Gulf Islands. Earlier this year, the Greens took a by-election in Nanaimo-Ladysmith, and provincially, they have 3 MLAs on the island. Right now, experts say this 3-way race is too tight to call, with the Liberals and NDP also counting on a win.
In mid-August, actually, it was a 2-way race between the Greens and the Liberals. And I've been watching the polls every day in this riding, and now it's pretty much a 2-way race between the NDPs and the Greens.
The main reason appears to be the burgeoning climate change social movement that's put pressure on politicians to act sooner rather than later.
My name's Laurel Collins. I'm running in the upcoming federal election for the NDP.
The NDP has held the riding of Victoria for the last 13 years.
New Democrats understand the connection between social inequality and the climate crisis. And if we forget about that, we're going to fail.
In the 1990s and early 2000s, legendary Liberal David Anderson was key in his party's hold on the riding.
People are looking to see us take action on the environment, and that's something that actually pushed me to put my name on the ballot. We need to make a transition from a fossil fuel economy to a clean economy.
The Greens, according to political experts, are the party that focuses on environmental policy.
Climate change has certainly come ashore as a big issue in Victoria, and clearly it's no longer just the Green Party that's trying to own it. But beyond the environment, there's another issue that's also top of mind.
The signs are everywhere.
Finding affordable housing is always a concern.
Probably housing.
It's not very affordable for the average income.
At the extreme end of the scale, it's a rising number of people who live in shelters or out on the street.
We're not a one-issue party, and everybody's concerned about housing, affordability, and I think, particularly when they're talking to us, they want to talk about a sustainable economy.
In the remaining days of the campaign, one thing all of the candidates agree on, there's no such thing as a safe seat. Belle Puri, CBC News, Victoria.
Well, ever since the election campaign kicked off, the Conservatives have been accusing the Liberals of secretly planning to levy a hefty tax on the profits of the sale of a home.
Salima Shivji takes a look at the claim and whether it checks out.
Couples who have had to switch jobs or move due to factors that mean that they've only been in their home for a short period of time know that under the Liberals, they will have to pay higher taxes.
It wasn't said on stage, but pushed on the sidelines. The Tory War Room set up this website, doubling down on a claim they've been making since the first week of the campaign, that the Liberals plan to collect a tax on up to 50% of the profits on the sale of your home. A claim pulled from a year-old policy proposal document drafted by the federal Liberal Ontario MPs. There, it's listed as another idea that has emerged from housing town halls, an idea to target speculators who flip homes, using a sliding tax scale depending on how long the home has been occupied. The Liberals have flatly denied it.
It's not something the Liberal Party has endorsed. It's not something the Liberal Party will endorse. It is a bad idea, and it is a lie.
And it's nowhere in their platform. Still, that answer doesn't satisfy Andrew Scheer.
Because Justin Trudeau says things that aren't true. He has a track record of lying. He has a track record of saying things that he knows to be false, and he has a track record of breaking promises. That's why. So I believe that Canadians are right to be concerned that this is something that the Trudeau Liberals will pursue if they are re-elected.
And his party is handing out flyers to voters based on a claim that has no evidence to support it. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Ottawa.
So, how often should you take your car in for maintenance? Why, the answer to that question depends on where you live. Next.
Here are some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
I felt that if there was allegations of wrongdoing, if I was involved, there could be a perception of bias.
Premier John Horgan is defending the actions of his office as to when and what it knew about the legislature spending scandal and why copies of detailed documents were shredded months before the story came to light.
They all said, we don't have it. We don't think we're going to get it until November, maybe December. So you're out of luck.
Seniors in BC will have to wait 2 more months for a flu vaccine that offers better protection. The shot is being recommended by federal health officials, but BC says that's not necessarily true, that it's better. The province does not cover the vaccine.
Also gripping testimony today at the trial of Gabriel Klein, accused of killing Letitia Reimer at Abbotsford Senior Secondary 3 years ago. Another girl who survived being stabbed that day said she heard Reimer scream. She saw Klein's face and only remembered he looked mean. Klein, who has schizophrenia, will argue he was not criminally responsible by reason of a mental disorder.
Well, keeping up on your car maintenance can be a lot of work, which is why a Victoria man was frustrated when he discovered he may have been paying for work he didn't need.
Found out his dealership says one thing and his car's manual says something else. As Aaron Salzman explains, the answer may depend on where you live in Canada.
As a professional musician, life for Nick Lariviere is normally pretty upbeat. But lately, things have hit a bit of a sour note when it comes to his car.
I bought the car last summer. So far, I've had it serviced 3 times.
That's not repairs, just routine maintenance and oil changes. Hyundai told him his car should be serviced every 6,000 kilometers, but
I read the manual, and the manual actually says 12,000 kilometers.
In fact, Hyundai manuals have 2 maintenance schedules. The first for normal driving conditions every 12,000 kilometers, but it's every 6,000 kilometers for severe driving conditions, like driving mainly on dirt roads or in areas with extreme heat or cold. Lariviere says he uses his car for normal driving, and he lives in Victoria, well known for its temperate climate.
I'm all for doing what the car needs in order to keep it running properly in good condition. I've paid a lot of money for it, but I don't want to just throw my money away changing oil that's barely been used.
So he called Hyundai Canada.
It is an actual requirement.
Their customer service rep told him Canadian owners have to follow the severe usage schedule in order to maintain their warranty. Hyundai Canada says that was a mistake. Broadly speaking, most Canadians fall under severe conditions simply due to weather and temperature, the company says. But small pockets such as Vancouver Island experience milder weather and may be exempt. But even in colder areas, some are questioning 6,000 kilometer maintenance intervals. There's a class action lawsuit before a judge in Montreal right now against Kia over its severe usage schedule. Hyundai owns a controlling interest in Kia.
In some cases, the manufacturer has gotten rid of that interval. They don't actually have a severe usage, a different schedule for severe usage.
Oil analysis experts say that's partly because oil and engines are better and usage can vary widely.
So you really can't do a one-size-fits-all and say the whole country of Canada is a severe place, because that's just not true. The environment is not true, and the way people use their engines is not true.
But automakers can't come up with a maintenance interval for every possible situation, which is why most manufacturers, not just Hyundai, list either a regular or severe service schedule, even if it does leave some Canadians wondering which one to follow. Aaron Saltzman, CBC News, Toronto.
A live shot tonight of North Vancouver and the Lonsdale Quay. Bright and sunny today, but definitely on the cool side. So is it time to bring out the parkas? Well, for me it is. Brett has the full forecast next.
you don't mind the cold. I mean, I don't want to say it was super cold, but I mean, it was chilly. It was chilly.
Well, my family in Abbotsford said it was below zero. And
Yes.
you had said, yeah.
I would believe
Yeah.
it. And to me, this was a classic, more so Eastern Canada type of fall day to have, but it was definitely nice to see that sun
Beautiful.
back today, I would say.
Yeah.
And we can definitely look forward to that tomorrow. So if you didn't get the chance to really enjoy today, well, that's going to be a rinse and repeat for you tomorrow. But let's take a look to see this sunrise that we saw this morning. It was beautiful, was it not? Not a cloud in the sky. Temperatures. Okay. All right. Okay. Hi. So yeah, it was beautiful at this point in time. Sorry, there's a few little technical issues there, but it was definitely a wonderful day to get outside. Temperatures throughout tomorrow are going to be very close to seasonal, looking right around 12 degrees or so across much of the lower mainland, and lots of sun in full form. Now, at that point in time, it is going to be a little bit chilly once again throughout the overnight periods, and you can definitely thank this big area of high pressure that is situated all over the province for this. Over the next couple of days, as we move ahead into the future, we're going to see it move slowly to the east, and that's going to result in some more rain and perhaps even some snow falling for our coast mountains by the time that we get there on Saturday. Now, throughout Saturday, as much as Mike will definitely love at this point in time, there is the chance for a few spotty showers throughout the day, but it is definitely not going to be a considerable washout day by any stretch of the imagination. And at this point in time, Sunday at least, is actually looking quite good. Those overnight lows are going to be fairly chilly, so definitely keep in mind that we could be seeing those down to about 4 degrees or so throughout the Friday overnight period and then into Saturday. But overall, it is not going to be too bad. Now, in terms of what that translates to for our 5-day forecast, we're looking again at those brilliantly sunny skies throughout much of Thursday. Friday as well, going back up to seasonal with just a few high clouds, closer to about 14. And as I mentioned, just a few spotty showers expected on Saturday before returning back to a normal, very seasonal forecast throughout Sunday and Monday. So there is definitely a lot to look forward to into the next few days.
All right. Thanks very much, Brett.
You're welcome.
The mother of a teen murdered outside his school shares her grief publicly. Why she says the school could have done more to protect her son after the break.
I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. On the coast, Gloria Makarenko returns as host of Splash, Art Umbrella's signature art auction and gala on October 26th. Get your tickets today at artsumbrella.com. And CBC Vancouver's Dan Burrett is back by popular demand at Richmond Hospital Foundation's Starlight Gala on October 19th. For more info and tickets, visit richmondhospitalfoundation.com. And for more, check us out online.
Police in Hamilton, Ontario said today they aren't looking for any other suspects in connection with the stabbing death of a teenager earlier this week.
2 teens have been charged with the first-degree murder in the death of Devin Brackie-Selve. The 14-year-old was stabbed in front of his mother outside a high school Monday afternoon. As Ellen Morrow reports today, his mother spoke publicly about her grief.
Sherry Ann Selve's grief is boundless today. She was consoled by family and friends outside the home she shared with her 14-year-old son, Devin, after telling reporters just how great of a son he was.
He was just a very passionate kid. He came to rescues with us. He helped me transport cats to vet appointments.
But Selve says her son was having a difficult school year, the victim of bullying. Selve also says she reported that bullying to the school on several occasions. She says the school should have done more.
All schools have the same policy, zero tolerance and zero bullying, and everyone belongs, and it's not true. And no one's held accountable for it. It keeps happening.
It's unclear what exactly led to the killing of Devin Brackie-Selve. 2 teenagers have been charged with first-degree murder. Brackie-Selve was stabbed near the school in front of his mother earlier this week. I spoke to the director of the Hamilton Wentworth School Board earlier today about its response to the bullying Selve says her son was facing and whether it failed Devin Brackie-Selve.
Bullying is becoming more complex, as you know, not just in the, when I grew up, it was in the physical world. Now we need to figure out, how do you manage that in the digital world? And that's where a lot of the bullying occurs.
The school board says it will launch its own investigation, and it is sharing information with Hamilton Police. Tonight, there will be a vigil here at Devin Brackie-Selve's high school. The focus will be on remembering him and speaking out against bullying. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Hamilton, Ontario.
Video obtained exclusively by CBC News shows a violent arrest in Edmonton, experts say, crosses the line into assault.
It happened back in July during the arrest of an alleged truck thief. The CBC Charles Rusnell explains what happened.
The officer looks over both shoulders, then delivers 3 hard kicks. Handcuffed, the alleged truck thief is then smashed headfirst into a wall. All this captured in June on a cell phone camera by a resident of a downtown Edmonton apartment. That was enough to launch a criminal investigation by the Alberta Serious Incident Response Team. But security video obtained exclusively by CBC News shows the police beating of the suspect was far worse and involved more than one officer. Boxed in, the suspect, Kyle Parkhurst, complies with police demands to get out of the vehicle. But an officer, weapon drawn, kicks the truck door, then strikes Parkhurst on the head.
We don't pistol whip people in Canada.
Mount Royal University criminologist Kelly Sundberg is a use of force expert. He has serious concerns about an officer hitting a suspect with a weapon.
Aside from the damage that could be caused to an individual by striking them with a firearm, it heightens the risk of a unintentional discharge, and there's it's in a public area. It's just very concerning.
After the officer slams the suspect headfirst into a wall, he then elbow smashes him in the head.
All of that would definitely be assault.
Amanda Hart-Dohoon is a director of the Criminal Trial Lawyers Association.
There are definitely elements within that video where the force that I saw seems very excessive and quite a bit more than what was necessary.
Both Hart-Dohoon and Sundberg say the videos show police vigilantism.
The police function is to investigate and apprehend and ensure our safety, not to implement some sort of street justice.
One officer has been removed from active duty while the external investigation continues. Parkhurst, the alleged truck thief, faces several dozen charges and is in custody. Edmonton's police chief declined interview requests. Charles Rusnell, CBC News, Edmonton.
In Germany, 2 people are dead after a shooting outside a synagogue and a nearby kebab shop.
The attack in the eastern city of Halle happened on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the Jewish year. Video showed a man in a military-style outfit firing shots from behind a car. Police have arrested a suspect who was described as heavily armed.
Witnesses say the attacker tried to force his way into the synagogue where about 70 people were gathered, but he apparently failed to get in despite repeatedly shooting at the door. German authorities are calling it an anti-Semitic attack and suspect a right-wing extremist motive.
To Syria now, where Turkey's much-feared offensive against Kurdish fighters in the northeast has begun. The region in their crosshairs is also home to civilians, as well as tens of thousands of ISIS fighters Turkey detained while fighting alongside U.S. troops. And as Susan Ormiston explains, that U.S. connection is now central to how things are playing out there.
Turkish tanks at the Syrian border, what President Erdogan has long wanted, an attack against their Kurdish enemy. But a key U.S. ally. It is a powder keg kicked off by the U.S. president's sudden plan to pull out U.S. forces.
I hope that he will act rationally.
President Trump now trying to warn Turkey not to wipe out Kurds.
I will wipe out his economy if that happens. I've already done it once.
But even staunch Republican allies are offside.
If he follows through with this, it'd be the biggest mistake of his presidency.
Kurdish-led forces who, with the U.S., helped defeat ISIS, are now on the defensive. Talk of betrayal and abandonment. Panicked civilians have begun an exodus, scrambling to get out. We left our village, says this man, fearing our children might get hurt in the shelling. Tonight, multiple warplanes dispatched again as Turkey carries out its mission. Erdogan's generals want to clear a wide corridor, create a buffer between them and Kurdish militias, whom they call terrorists, and then resettle Syrian refugees. Erdogan says civilians won't be targeted, but many don't believe him. And they fear what will happen to the tens of thousands of captured ISIS fighters and their families, guarded by Kurdish-led forces who are now under attack. President Trump has long wanted out of Syria, saying today the U.S. being pulled into the Middle East was, quote, the worst mistake in U.S. history. But his critics say this move, unplanned and hasty, has helped plunge the region further into chaos. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Washington.
And the UN Security Council is going to be meeting about this tomorrow behind closed doors.
And Canada has joined the list of foreign leaders condemning Turkey's move. Officials are saying it risks undermining the stability of an already fragile region.
As Karen Paul shows us, Kurdish Canadians are watching what's happening with fear and anger.
All my family, all my cousins, relatives, everybody's there.
It wasn't quite business as usual at this Toronto hair salon.
This is a humanity thing.
These sisters are trying to focus on their customers, but struggling.
I just sat down and I cried. I couldn't work.
Trump says the U.S.
Glued to news of the Turkish attacks, trying to reach family and friends who live near the Syrian border. Finally, getting through.
Everybody panicking, screaming, everybody crying.
They canceled their evening appointment so they could get to the rally at the U.S. Embassy.
That we cannot watch this slaughter of innocent people.
We're expecting that Canada take a lead and use their voice in the NATO.
Shame on USA!
There was a similar scene outside the U.S. Embassy in Vancouver. Members of the Kurdish community wanted to deliver a letter.
We're here to tell Donald Trump that allies don't make unilateral decisions and leave behind the people who gave thousands of lives.
This rally was planned days ago. Today's news added extra urgency.
Thousands of people trying to flee the zone, and we have the young people are mobilizing to go fight.
This Kurdish man and his family came to Canada just last year as privately sponsored refugees. He's worried about his 80-year-old mother left behind.
We didn't sleep yesterday and we're under stress. We are waiting really maybe we hope the United States government change her mind.
Kurdish Canadians say they feel betrayed by the American government, but they can't count on their allies who can they trust, and who will step in to prevent what they worry will become a humanitarian disaster. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Vancouver.
What's it really like to fly like an eagle? After the break, we show you the stunning footage. Three scientists have been awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry.
They independently discovered a piece of the puzzle that gave the world the rechargeable batteries used to power electronic devices and a whole lot more.
The ability to store energy from renewable sources, the sun, the wind, opens up for sustainable energy consumption.
The British, American, and Japanese scientists will share the $1 million award. One of them, an American professor of chemistry, also set a record for the oldest ever Nobel winner at 97.
Their research started back in the 70s, ultimately led to the creation of lithium-ion batteries, and successive research made them more portable, rechargeable, and safer to use. Now they power everything from smartphones, laptops, to electric cars. The three laureates will receive their gold medals and diplomas on December 10th in Stockholm. Well, he's got an eagle eye, a camera lens, and a panoramic view like nothing you've ever seen.
Yeah, this is what it's really like, as Steve Miller said, to fly like an eagle.
We hope that people seeing how beautiful our nature is, we can really raise awareness and actually give them just like a little reason to do something to reduce our impact on climate.
And this bird is definitely on a mission. A camera strapped to its wings, about to show us his turf. An environmental group says this lofty filmmaker has two goals: to show the world how quickly mountain ice is melting across Europe,
and to remind us that big birds like Victor are disappearing because of climate change. But just in case we don't get the message today, Victor is planning several more trips this fall. He's going to take us around the world.
That's very cool.
Very cool.
That's a great video.
And important to see. That's it for tonight. Dan will be here at 11 o'clock after the National.
Go Canucks, go.